True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is May 17th, 2026. We are back recording after having a long time off. Olivia's back from her trip, so we're getting back into it. And just to preface, I am talking a little bit quieter because we're recording after baby Jack has gone to sleep. So I'm a little scared to talk too loud yet. I'll adjust. We've just come off a couple rough nights of him not sleeping, so I'm living in fear. I'm living in silence in my own house. I have to act like I don't exist in my own house, basically, because I'm just afraid. But we're also not sure if I broke my microphone, so if it sounds a little off, there could be two reasons why. But once I edit this, I'll be able to figure it out. So just bear with over that. But yeah, so we're back. I guess, do you want to talk about your trip quickly first?
I feel like maybe it's interesting too, because our last episode that came out was about Katie Ferguson being missing. And when I was reading the Spotify comments, I'm like, gosh, it feels like so long ago that we recorded that.
We recorded that one a while ago.
Yeah, we did a whole lot of pre-recording. So maybe some people won't realize as much that we haven't been recording live essentially for a month now. We're back in kind of a real-time schedule. But yeah, so I was away for 5 weeks. It's now Monday morning here. I got back on Friday from the UK. So the jet lag is a bit of a mission, but we had a great trip. We went to the US for 2 weeks. My daughter danced at Disneyland, which was great. Then we went to France, Italy, and then and Switzerland, and then London. So we got back. It was a massive trip, mammoth effort. Everything went well, though. We were so lucky, no delays. I just had one funny story that I wanted to pick out. So I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was here on Patreon, but I mentioned before we left that I had bought a Kindle because I thought I can't lug books around. I've got limited space. Bought a Kindle. And then on the flight from Sydney to LA, which is 13 hours, I unpacked all my stuff in the seat pocket, put my Kindle in, didn't use it. And because the Kindle, I don't know, like the Kindle I have is so small. It's like the size of a very small, the like actual size of a very small paperback book, but very, very thin. Like I didn't even know it's tiny. So I just obviously didn't realize. And when we got to the first place in LA, it was nice weather. I thought I'm going to go and sit by the pool. I'm going to read my new Kindle for a minute. Looked everywhere. I'm like, I've left it on the plane. So I contacted the airline. They had a lost and found. I'm like, there's no chance. There's no way that I'm going to get it back. And they're like, they wrote back within a day and they're like, hey, yep, we've got it. I'm like, wow. And they're like, we can ship it to you for $350. I'm like, what? That is double the cost, probably triple the cost of the Kindle when I convert it to Australian dollars. Then I wrote back and I said, oh, look, I'm going to actually be back at LAX to go to New York on this date. Is it all right if I come and pick it up? They're like, yeah, sure. I was like, this is unbelievable. And like nothing like this I feel ever happens. You never get anything back that you lose. So when I got to the airport, I went and picked it up. They had a little Ziploc bag all labeled for me already. So I was so happy. I read many books after that on the trip. And I was just so glad. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just buy another one. And if I get it back, I'll give the other one to someone else or something. But yeah, so lucky. It just had a little stroke of luck. I was very happy.
Kindles are they're not like super expensive where like you could buy another one and it wouldn't be like the worst ever, but obviously you don't want to, especially on such a big trip.
And if they were making me ship it would have been way cheaper for me just to buy another one. But yeah, I was very surprised at probably one of the busiest airports in the world. They found it and it was easy to get it back.
Yeah, I'm sure they get so much lost stuff that it must be just like such a routine.
When I went to the lost and found bit to pick it up, like there was baby car seats. I'm like, who like maybe it was like I feel like a lot of people. I guess it depends on the flight. Like maybe I don't think on international long flights you can take car seats. But like I'm like, how does all this stuff get lost? I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah, don't you need the car seat?
What do you do when you get to your destination and you don't have a car seat?
Well, it's like, what if like they put it on the wrong flight or something? Is that where they put it to?
Yeah, possibly. But there was millions of suitcases, just so much stuff. I'm like, imagine working lost and found the stuff you'd see.
I kind of want to. My random chat topic that I've brought to the table is, well, I spent the month with baby Jack, obviously. He's like going through it. He's getting 4 upper teeth at once, so it's been hard. But he is 9 months old now. He's got so much personality now. He's so cute and funny. He's like learning so many things. Like now, whenever Mike would see him, he'd always give him like a high five. So now whenever he sees Mike, he lifts his hand up in the air to give him a high five. Like he knows now, like that's like their thing. So it's just funny, like seeing them really start to kind of like learn and come to life. But he did put me through it for many days of waking up every 2 hours because of just teething or just like a regression. Who fucking knows, honestly, anymore? But I'm hoping to get back on track. But anyways, so the weather, we didn't even talk about the weather. It's been starting to get, it was literally 50 degrees and rainy still here forever. And then today, in the next couple days, it's going to be so hot. Like it was 80 something today. It's going to be 90 something over the next couple days. Like so hot. So obviously we got him an air conditioner for his room. It's like a little window unit. And I've been crazy because of his not sleeping the last few nights when I know like really it's probably just it is what it is. But I've been making sure to like make his room like pitch black, like as black as I can. I've put blackout tape on every little fucking light, on any little device, on everything in there, like a fucking psychopath. I have like I put tinfoil on the windows because my curtains weren't blackout enough, and I'm too poor to buy new curtains right now. So if you spray the windows with water and then you put tinfoil over them, it blacks them out. So Mike thinks I'm fucking insane, but anyways, I probably am. But that's what no sleep does to you. So anyways, we got this window air conditioner, and I don't have this problem with any other air conditioner I have. I don't know if because of what side of the house it's on, but it lets in so much fucking light. It's literally like a beacon, like through the vent. So I can't even cover it because it's like the vents of the air conditioner. So I've tried like many things. I tried putting like mesh over it, like black mesh that still lets air through, but still kind of blocks the air. And it's been my absolute worst nightmare. If anyone has any suggestions or has gone through this where you're like, oh, this air conditioner is letting in so much light, I taped all around it. It's not the sides, it's the literal vent coming through. Like the light just comes right through the unit and shines into the room. So I need some tips with that if anyone is creative or has any advice, because like I'm in my bedroom right now and I'm looking at my air conditioner and it doesn't do that at all. So I'm tempted to just like switch them if I can't figure out a way to darken it, because I think even if he does sleep through the night, obviously it's not shining light in the middle of the night, but he goes to bed still when it's sunny, which that hasn't been a problem. But first light is at like 5 a.m. So he wakes up at like 5:30, 5:40 pre 6 a.m. And I don't really want that.
I don't know if there's a thing here, but like we don't really have in window air conditioners here. We just have the split systems that you have to mount on the wall. Like, but I don't know if that's an option.
I don't know. I mean, they make also like ones that don't literally go in the window, like just the vent goes in the window, which is probably what I should have gotten, but I just didn't think about it because I've never thought about it before. I've never been like, oh, this window unit lets in so much light. So I don't know. I could always switch with mine or get one that just has the vent in the window, which might be better. But I literally just bought this air conditioner, so I'm like, fuck.
Frustrating.
Very annoying. The things that like you don't think about until you have a baby and you're like putting tape on this tiny, tiny little green light that's on like the camera, the monitor camera, and you're putting tape on every fucking little light.
It's funny.
Does it make a difference? I don't fucking know.
I know the green, like the lights on baby stuff has a purpose, like to let you know that it's working. But yeah, also
it's annoying.
Yeah.
And the worst is not for the baby monitor, the screen, the one that like I have, it has like this huge green light on it that is like a sound monitor. Like when it's loud, like the light goes up more and turns red. And when it's just like normal, it's just like regular green light. But it's so bright and you can't turn it off, which is why I started wearing an eye mask every night, because I'm like, this fucking monitor is like in my face, shining green. It's crazy. So yeah, I've been surviving. Had a tough few nights, but then there's been some nights where he slept through the night. So, you know, I guess it's all normal.
Yeah. What is it? Everything's a season.
Yeah. It seems like weekly they change that.
Yeah.
Very short seasons.
Yeah.
And they go like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We had like 4 nights where he like slept pretty decently, and I was like, I did it. I fucking made it. Like, we're getting on with it. And then we had 3 like horrible nights. I was like, what the fuck?
I feel like always I remember as soon as you think you've got it, they either change their, they need a, change up their routine or whatever. It's, yeah.
Yeah, like they're going through a spurt, they're teething, they're whatever. Who knows? Onward and upward. Just keep swimming.
yeah, exactly. Just keep swimming.
Okay. Before we get into the rest of the episode, we just wanted to tell you guys about a podcast we've been loving. It's been a while since we gave you guys a recommendation. We've been really loving the podcast Unmarked. It's a true crime podcast that goes beyond the headlines into the original material. It's on a recap show. It's built from interviews, documents, and primary sources, which we love and we think is really unique because I feel like I have a hard time finding podcasts that dive into a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know that some people don't love, the chat that we have and all that. So it's so good to find a true crime podcast with a different format. I really, really enjoy hearing kind of varying podcasts in our genre.
Yeah.
Each episode is built from first-hand accounts, interviews, archival audio, and case evidence. Some episodes include direct conversations with figures connected to the case, including Charles Manson and Robert Picton. One episode I've really enjoyed lately was about the Jodi Arias case. I've always followed that one. I've found it so interesting. And in the Unmarked episode, they talk about the possibility that Jodi is innocent, and they offer some different perspectives on the case. So I really recommend checking that one out. If you like true crime that's grounded in real evidence, this podcast is for you. Listen to Unmarked, a true crime podcast available wherever you get your podcasts.
So we have a long list of Patreon names to go through. Do you want to talk about the glitch?
Yeah. So when I was trying to get our list together on Patreon, it has a list of all the people who have signed up. But for some reason, it starts on like April 3rd and it goes up to today, which is fine. But then anyone before that, which I feel like I don't know if we would have last recorded right around that time. So, but anyway, basically from April, then it just goes back to January. So I'm like, well, where's everyone else in those things? So I've hopefully managed to get everyone. If we haven't and we've left your name out and you've joined up in the last probably since early April, let us know and we'll definitely give you a shout out next week.
Yeah, and this is as of May 17th. So if you join after that, you'll be in the next one.
So we do have a lot. There's not usually this many, but obviously we've had 4 weeks off.
No, there's always this many because our Patreon is so amazing and it's popping and everyone is joining all the time. And
also, too, one thing that you started up when I was away is like you need to get the Patreon app. You can do it on a computer too, but if you have the app, it's really good and really easy to use. There's a whole bunch of chats. We have a dedicated crime chat, we've got a dedicated book chat, and now we've got a dedicated recipe chat. So not true crime related, all of it. So if you just want to have a nice community where everyone loves chatting, sharing photos of their pets and their lives, definitely come and check it out. So we have Michaela, April, Rebecca, Renee, Kathy, Cassidy, Charlotte, Jamie, Hannah, Lisa, Sheila, Angela, Mimi, Caroline, Brooke, Jessie, Rebecca, Mama Doc, Jasmine, Beth, Tiffany, Brianna, Debbie, Belle, Jessica, Natalie, Katie, Carol, Chloe, Maria, and Ali. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. We love you guys. Thanks for joining. Best ever. BFFs for life.
It's really helpful to us. The more Patreons we have, the more time we can spend on true crime content. We really love doing it. Obviously, it is a time expense. So we love our Patreons. We're so thankful for all of them.
Yeah, especially me too, because it's part of the reason why I've been able to stay home with baby Jack for much longer than the U.S. maternity laws allow me to. Like I would have been back at work when he was a tiny, tiny baby, but thanks to all of you, I've been able to stretch it as far as possible. It's been tough sometimes, but I'm very grateful that I'm still home with him and hanging on.
And so the other thing that we haven't done for a little while is Listener of the Week. And this week's listener is Jessica B. She is a Patreon. And when we were chatting, she said, I've made a lot of Spotify, because we usually get our Listeners of the Week from Spotify comments because we love reading them and we often get, some really nice comments and some not so nice, but generally really nice comments on there. And she said, I'm really hoping I can be Listener of the Week. She always leaves comments on Spotify, which we love reading. And so we're so thankful. And yeah, Jessica is a Listener of the Week for this week. We'll definitely get back into it properly.
Jessica.
More real-time listeners and definitely more real-time Patreon updates. Now we're back on schedule.
Yeah, we're back on track.
Yeah.
Back at it. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about an older case. It's a good one. I'll just say that.
Yeah, this is a case I've had on the list for a very long time, and it was a little bit daunting because there is quite a lot of information. There's people who have very strong
A
opinions
lot
on
of
this
Jacks.
case, a lot of Jacks, but it is one that I love reading about. There's websites just dedicated to this case, which I'll link on the blog if you want to do it more of a deep dive too. But it is really, truly a fascinating case.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard of it, but I didn't know much about it, which I feel like I always say, but I always say it 'cause my brain just can't, like, hold information anymore, so I probably read about this before and I just, like, forget. But, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it ever since I've been reading the notes of being like, "Hmm." But anyways, so in 1978, 5 friends from Yuba County, California, vanished after a basketball game. Their abandoned vehicle was found deep in the snowy mountains, miles away from their intended route. Why the men went there and what happened next remains one of America's strangest unsolved mysteries. So, like we said, today's case is truly a bizarre one. We are going to be discussing the case of the Yuba County Five. And this is an older case, obviously, from 1978. It is about 5 men who each had mild intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions who attended a basketball game in Chico, California on February 24th, 1978. They left the venue and were never seen alive again. 4 of the men would be found dead in strange circumstances, and one remains missing to this day. You may have also heard of this case referred to as the Matthias Group incident, the Yuba City Five, or the American Dyatlov Pass incident. So we'll circle back later as to why it's sometimes referred to as the Dyatlov Pass incident. So we'll start off with the men involved. They are Bill Sterling, who is 29, Jack or Jackie Hewitt, who is 24, Ted Weir, who is 32, Jack Madruga, who is 30, and Gary Matthias, who is 25. So, as this case happened almost 50 years ago, some of the terminology around the men's conditions is outdated, but this is what was reported at the time. So, obviously, we know saying someone is slow isn't what we would say today, but that is
Yeah.
what they said then. So
And back
if you
then
hear
there
say
was
that, please don't get like offended. It's
yeah,
not.
I've
It's just
tried to
it is what
change
it
up
is.
as many of the instances that I can, but if one has slipped through, that is why. Because like, and I hate this word, but in a lot of headlines, the men were referred to as retarded, which is obviously not something that we would say today. So there's like a lot of headlines along those, though that
Yeah,
vein. So we've tried to change it as much as we can. But if you are doing your research too, you may see things like that pop up.
yeah. So as some background into the men, Gary Matthias was stationed in West Germany as part of his U.S. Army service in the early 1970s. While there, Gary developed addiction issues and he would eventually be diagnosed with schizophrenia. Gary was given a psychiatric discharge from the Army. He worked as an assistant in his stepfather's gardening business. Jack Madruga was also an Army veteran. He was said to have a low IQ. Gary and Jack were the only ones of the 5 to have driver's licenses. Jack worked for a time as a busboy for Sunsweet Growers, and he was said to dislike cold weather, which seems like a random thing to say, but it comes back.
Comes in. Yeah, you'll understand why we mention that.
Ted Weir worked for a while as a janitor and a snack bar clerk. According to the website diatlovpass.com, Ted was encouraged by his family to quit the jobs as they thought his slowness was causing problems.
That's their terminology.
Harsh.
Also, not our terminology, but that is how it was reported back in the 1970s.
Ted was said to have been protective of Jackie and would dial the phone for him if Jackie ever had to make a call. William Sterling was close friends with Jack. He was said to be deeply religious and would spend hours at the library reading literature so that he could teach about Jesus in the psychiatric facilities.
And so obviously William also goes by Bill, so you may see it written both ways.
So the men were all enrolled in a day program for developmentally disabled adults. According to an archived article by the Washington Post, Ted and Jackie had been diagnosed with intellectual disabilities, and Jack and William were considered, quote, slow learners. Each of the men lived with their parents. Their families collectively referred to the group as the boys. The men loved to watch and play sports together. They played basketball together on a team called the Gateway Gators. One of their mothers told the Los Angeles Times in 1978 they were just nice, friendly boys who went to games together and went home. On Saturday, February 25th, 1978, their basketball team was due to play the first game in a tournament that was sponsored by the Special Olympics. The winning team would win a prize of a free week in Los Angeles. The men were excited. They had prepared the night before, laid out their uniforms, and asked their parents to wake them up. Ted asked his mother to wash his new white high-top sneakers and said, "We got a big game Saturday. Don't you let me oversleep." So I think that kind of also shows you kind of like their
dependence.
Yeah.
Their capabilities, like they are, essentially quite childlike, asking the parents to wake them up. And that is important because of what happens in this story. They, obviously there's a mystery, but it does show you that they were very dependent on other people and on, especially on their parents, and that they weren't fully capable of being independent themselves.
Yeah, I guess that was what I was wanting to say before my brain kind of just stopped working. Like I said, lack of sleep. That they're very childlike for men who are in their like mid-20s, 30s. So they all decided to go to Chico, California on Friday, February 24th. They wanted to cheer on the UC Davis basketball game. And Chico is around a 50-mile or 80-kilometer drive from where the men lived. Jack drove the men to the game in his white and turquoise 1969 Mercury Montego coupe. The weather on that night was said to be cold, inclement, and rainy, and the men were only wearing light jackets. The Davis team won the game. The men left the venue and decided to stop at Bear's Market in downtown Chico to get snacks and drinks for the ride home. The store clerk remembered the men specifically, as she said they entered the store right on the 10 p.m. closing time, and delayed her process of closing the store. I remember when I worked in the mall, I always hated that. They bought one Hostess cherry pie, one Langendorf lemon pie, one Snickers bar, one Marathon bar, 2 Pepsis, and a quart and a half of milk, which I'm like, who's getting milk?
At 10 o'clock at night. But I guess it's maybe to have with their cakes and pies.
Yeah, true. Sometimes when you're having like cake or something like that, a glass of milk hits the spot. When the men failed to return home from Chico, their families became concerned and called authorities, and a search for them began. Jack Hewitt, another Jack, Tom's brother, spoke out about finding out that his brother was missing. He said his mother called him and asked, "Have you seen your brother? Have you heard from him? Oh, have you heard anything?" And he was like, "No, why?" And he said that he remembers her saying they didn't come home from the game last night. On Tuesday, February 28th, 4 days after they went missing, a forest ranger found Jack's car abandoned on an unpaved road in Oroville. The car was found 2.5 hours away from Chico, in the opposite way that they should have been driving home. The car was found in the mountains in the Plumas National Forest. So, looks like a very rocky area.
Yeah,
so
like very kind of like there's cliffs and ravines and
a
things
lot of
like
pine
that.
trees.
Yeah, a lot of woods. It's not like it's just kind of a field. This is definitely a very wooded area that looks like there's some quite steep drops and things like that. Like it's not just like a random field where they got stuck. This looks like a very mountainous region.
Yeah. So police found no evidence of foul play near the vehicle. The car was unlocked and one window was down. The keys were not in the vehicle. Candy wrappers, milk cartons, and basketball programs were in the car. Maps were found in the glove compartment. There was no obvious damage to the car. It still had around a quarter tank of gas. The car started immediately when the police hotwired it. Some reports say that the car was not stuck in the snow, but others say that it had become stuck in some shallow snow drifts. But these same reports say that there was evidence that the men attempted to spin the wheels to get out. The snow was said to be not that deep where the men could have pushed the car out of the drifts. The road in the area was bumpy, and investigators were surprised to find that the car didn't have any damage. Despite the vehicle having a low-hanging muffler, there were no dents, gouges, or even scrapes. They said the driver had either taken great care or that they had known the road well enough to anticipate any rut. So as mentioned earlier, Jack's family said he hated cold weather and had never been to that area of the mountains. They also said that he would not have let anyone else drive the vehicle, which raises questions about how someone unfamiliar with the area could have navigated the terrain so well. Jack's family have also said that he would never have left the car unsecured with the windows down. And why would the window be down if it was cold?
Yeah, I know, if he hated the cold, and also if he wouldn't let anyone else drive the vehicle, but yet the vehicle had no damage, and this area looks like, you drive over rocks, and if you, especially in the pitch black in 1978, where they wouldn't have had a GPS and things like that, it is remarkable that there wasn't
No
any
LED
damage.
headlights.
Yeah, any damage to the car for people who were, if he drove it there, who were unfamiliar with the area. Before we get into the episode, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, DraftKings. We know that some of our listeners love to play some games on their phone or online when they have a few minutes of downtime. Maybe you're waiting in the car, picking up kids, in the school pickup line. You've just got a few minutes to kill. What do you get when you combine bingo-style bonuses and slots? Cashingo. DraftKings Casino is the exclusive place to play Cashingo slots. New casino players play $5 and get 1,000 flex spins. Claim 50 spins a day for 20 days on your choice of over 100 slots, including the exclusive Cashingo collection.
Download the DraftKings Casino app and sign up with code TCS to claim your flex spins and experience Cashingo, the feature you can't play anywhere else. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Casino. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus, physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. Non-withdrawable. Spins issued as 50 spins per day for 20 days. Valid for select games only and expire each day after 24 hours. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends July 22nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time.
So a search for the men began and it carried on for 5 days. A blizzard then hit the area and it hampered all the search efforts. They kind of had to stop what they were doing, and it also covered up any possible tracks that the men had left behind. Around 9 inches of snow fell in the area. Searchers on snowcats almost became lost themselves due to the hazardous conditions, and the search was called off. So 5 days isn't a huge amount of time to search, but it sounds like it was freezing cold. They likely wouldn't have survived anyway in those 5 days, which we'll get into. So there were apparent sightings of the men after they left the basketball game and when they went missing. A man named Joseph Shon said that he had seen the men at around 11 p.m. on Friday, February 24th. So that is the night they were at the basketball game after they went to the store and bought the snacks. He said he'd been driving up the gravel road to his cabin when his car became stuck in the snow at 5:30 p.m. He said he got out and he tried to push it, but then he suffered a heart attack. And this is just a crazy story in itself.
Yeah.
So he's trying to go
to
his cabin. He gets stuck in the snow, gets out to start push it, and then thinks he's having a heart attack. So there are differing versions about what happened next. Obviously, as we mentioned, this is now nearly 50 years ago, so things change over time. Things are reported differently. So there are a few different versions. In one version, Joseph said that he lay in his car. Obviously, he was in so much pain due to this heart condition that he couldn't move. And at around 11:30 p.m., he saw 2 sets of headlights approaching the vehicle. One belonged to a car and the second belonged to a pickup truck. He said he got out of the car and he tried to flag down help. The cars apparently stopped 20 feet away from him. Joseph called to the people for help, but they switched off their headlights and stopped talking. He said that the passengers from one vehicle got into the second vehicle and left the scene. So I guess if he is insinuating this is the men got out of their car and got into the pickup truck and left the scene, because they obviously would find their car later. Joseph would say that he was delirious from the pain he was in, so he possibly did not recall what happened correctly. He told the Los Angeles Times in March 1978, "I was half conscious, not lucid, hallucinating and in deep pain. Whether I half saw or half imagined the second vehicle, I just don't know." In the early morning of February 25th, Joseph's vehicle ran out of fuel, which he's obviously kept it running, I guess, for heating, and he said he felt slightly better. He decided...
That's crazy. I'm like, what do you mean you just had a heart attack? And you're like, all right, well, I'm feeling better now.
A heart attack so bad that you have to lay down and, can't do anything for hours and hours, but then, you feel better. I don't know. He decided to walk 8 miles, which is around 13 kilometers, to a lodge for help.
Insane.
He arrived there and a manager drove him home. They passed Jack's abandoned vehicle on the way in the location where Joseph said that he had heard the voices. So Joseph would receive medical attention and it was confirmed that he had suffered a mild heart attack. After hearing about Joseph asking for help and him saying that the people had ignored him, Ted's mother said that was not like her son. Both he and Bill or William had been able to help a friend get medical attention after that person had had an overdose. So, she's insinuating that it would be unlikely if he was calling for help that they wouldn't have tried to help him unless maybe there was extenuating circumstances or if it was really them.
I don't know. I mean, it was like dark out.
I know they were probably if it was them, like we still don't know to this day if it was the men, but they were probably scared and frightened if they were lost, or if there were other people involved, they would have been scared and frightened.
And they got this weird guy trying to flag you down.
11:30 p.m. in the dark in the snow. Yeah,
I don't think I'd be jumping out to help.
So there was a second sighting reported to have occurred on the day that the men disappeared. A store clerk in Brownsville, which is around 30 miles or 48 kilometers from where the car was abandoned, said that the men had arrived at the store in a red pickup truck on the day after their disappearance. The store owner corroborated this story, so it's kind of interesting because it does go with Joseph's story about there being maybe a pickup truck. The clerk said that men who he thought were Bill and Jackie were in a phone booth outside the store and that the other men went inside. The men purchased burritos, chocolate milk, and soft drinks. Police believed that the clerk was, quote, a credible witness, and so they took her account seriously. So it is interesting because didn't one say he would dial the phone? I wonder.
It was literally just going back to look.
Yeah.
It was Bill, Jackie.
Yeah, Bill and Jackie. So there was a mention, that someone would dial the phone for the others. I wonder, I am skeptical as to if this was the men, like who were they calling? Why were they in a red pickup truck? I think maybe this might have just been a separate group of men that the store clerk associated with this case, but I guess we might never know.
It's just frustrating because, like, if this was today, obviously there's cameras all over this gas station or wherever they were stopping. Everywhere has cameras now.
So as 1978 went on, the weather became warmer and the snow began to melt. On June 4th of that year, a group of motorcyclists stopped at a trailer that was maintained by the U.S. Forest Service. The trailer was at a campsite around 19 miles or 31 kilometers from where the car had been abandoned. So quite a while. Like that's not, that would take a long time in the snow and in this terrain to get there. The front window of the trailer was broken. When the group of motorcyclists went inside, they could smell decomposition and they found Ted Weir's body inside the trailer. So obviously when his body was found, that gave, searchers and investigators an area for them to look in and they began a new search. The road between the trailer and when the car was abandoned was focused on. The following day, the bodies of Jack and Bill were found on opposite sides of the road around 11 miles or 18 kilometers from where the car was found. Jack's body had been consumed partially by scavenging animals and only bones remained of Bill. So this is like February, March, April, May, June. So this is around 4 or 5 months after they went missing. 4 months after they went missing that their bodies were found. Autopsies on the two men would reveal that they both died from hypothermia. It was theorized that one of the men may have given into sleep, which is a symptom in the final stages of hypothermia, and the other died after staying by his side, which is so sad.
So sad.
2 days after those two men were found, Jackie's father found his son's backbone while searching, which is a horrific thing. Imagine finding that while you're out there searching for your son. The remains were found under a bush and they were around 2 miles or 3 kilometers from the trailer. His shoes and his jeans were also found near the remains. And Jackie's skull was found by law enforcement the following day. His cause of death was also said to be hypothermia, which I wonder like if they just deduce that from the weather, or because like 1978, how can they really tell 4 months after
the bodies
remains?
were?
I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe they can. So Gary,
I had the same thought.
Gary is the only one out of the 5 to have never been found, and as of the time of recording, which is May 2026, he remains missing. So we're now going to circle back a little bit to when Ted's body was discovered. As he was found inside the trailer, his body was the most preserved. It obviously hadn't been scavenged by animals or the elements, and it could offer maybe a few clues as to what had happened. Ted was found tightly wrapped in 8 sheets, including one that had been wrapped around his head. I picture it as kind of like a shroud type scenario where someone has wrapped up his body, maybe in like a burial shroud type thing.
That's what I thought too.
This indicates that someone would have been in the trailer with him because he wouldn't have been able to shroud himself in that way. His autopsy showed that he had died from starvation and hypothermia. He had lost almost 100 pounds. He was 200 pounds or 91 kilos when he went missing, and he was around half of that when his body was found. The growth of his facial hair suggested he had lived for around 3 months after he last shaved. I have seen some other reports that say 8 weeks, but either way, 8 weeks or 12 weeks, it's a very long time to have survived. And because he had been clean shaven when he disappeared. Ted's feet were frostbitten and were said to be almost gangrenous. There was a table next to the bed where Ted was found, and he'd placed his possessions there. There was a wallet with cash, a ring with his name engraved on it, and a necklace. There was a gold watch at the table, and Ted's family said it didn't belong to him. I've listened to a bunch of other podcasts on this. I was actually listening to an older one by the Trail Went Cold this morning, and he theorized that someone who had stayed in the cabin previously had left the watch behind. So I feel like that is a very plausible explanation. Thinking. Just because it was there, like, you know, who knows who's been in that cabin? Maybe someone left it behind. There was a partly melted candle also on the table. Ted was wearing the clothes that he went missing in, but his shoes could not be found. This is the crazy part for me. There was a fireplace in the trailer which had not been used, despite there being materials to light it with. There was heavy clothing, matches, playing cards, books, wooden furniture. They were all found in the trailer, and they all could have been used to start a fire for warmth. There was also a propane tank connected to the trailer, which would have provided heat and cooking fuel. So essentially, they could have survived in this trailer for an indefinite amount of time because they had heat. They had all these supplies, which we'll get into, but for some reason, none of it was used. Mm-hmm. The Yuba County Lieutenant Lance Ayres said all they had to do was turn the gas on, and they'd have had gas to the trailer and heat. In the storage shed outside of the trailer, there was a year's supply of sea rations. These were individual canned, pre-cooked and prepared meals that were given to the US military. The men did consume 36 of these meals, but left the majority of them untouched. There was also a huge supply of freeze-dried meals. One of the sea ration cans had been opened with an Army P-38 can opener. John Thompson, who was the special agent from the California Department of Justice, said it was bizarre and no explanations. 1,000 leads every day, you've got 1,000 leads. Ted's family have said, so Ted was the one who was found in the trailer, that he lacked common sense as part of his cognitive disability. He was said to not understand why it was imperative to stop at a stop sign, and he once had to be dragged out of bed when the house was burning around him because he was afraid of losing sleep and being late for work, which is just so sad. But I feel like this explains why he didn't know how to use the supplies in the trailer, you know, didn't know how to turn on the gas. It's a very plausible explanation for me.
Yeah, and I think it's just them being very childlike, just and very afraid of like getting in trouble and not wanting to like mess with someone else's stuff or, you know, get arrested for doing a break-in. I feel like they kind of more thought that way.
Yeah. So it did appear that Gary, the one who has never been found, was in the trailer for a period of time as his sneakers were found in there. The rations were opened with a P-38 can opener that only Gary or Jack were said to be able to use due to their past military service. So that kind of pretty much confirms that Gary was probably there. His shoes were there, the can opener had been used, and he was the only one who likely knew how to use it. Jack Madruga's mother, Mabel, said there was some force that made them go up there. They wouldn't have fled off in the wood like a bunch of quail. We know good and well that somebody made them do it. We can't visualize someone getting the upper hand on those 5 men, but we know it must have been. They saw something at the game at the parking lot, said Ted's sister-in-law. They may have seen it and didn't even realize that they'd seen it. So there are many theories as to why the men ended up where they did. Gary was said to have friends in Forbestown, and that's theorized that the men took a wrong turn while trying to get to that location to see the friends. The day before the men went missing, a US Forest Service snowcat visited the trailer to clear snow off the roof so that it wouldn't collapse. Authorities thought that the men may have seen the snowcat tracks and tried to follow them in the hope of finding shelter, which again seems reasonable enough to me. They thought it's possible that Jack and Bill perished from hypothermia while on this walk, followed soon by Jackie. So that is why there were only signs of Ted and Gary in the trailer. As we mentioned, the trailer was very, very far. 11 miles. Or was it 11 miles? No, the trailer was 19 miles 30, or 31 kilometers from the car. So I feel like absolutely you could have perished from hypothermia in freezing temperatures before you reached that. In the pitch black in the night, you know, who knows how long it would have taken them to reach it. I think
sounds so horrible and scary.
Yeah, I agree. So if this theory is correct, Ted and Gary reached the trailer and they broke the window to gain entry, which is why the front window was broken. The family said that as the trailer was locked, the men may have been scared to use supplies found in there in case they were later arrested for burglary or theft, which is horrible. As we probably know, Ted died in the trailer, perhaps as his feet were too injured to leave and try and find help. It's theorized that after he died, Gary left and tried to get help, and he died somewhere in the wilderness. A Yuba County Sheriff's Department letter dated mid-October 2020, so a long time after all this happened. It was made public by a records request in October 2023, and it ruled that Gary is believed to be a victim of foul play, which is interesting.
So weird.
Sheriff Coroner Wendell Anderson wrote, the case remains open as a missing person homicide case. So there are some theories, obviously Joseph Shon's thing about there being the other people in the pickup truck, that maybe they were led there by some other people, which we'll get into theories and some, thoughts now. So one theory is, and I feel like this is probably the most likely scenario personally, is that they took a wrong turn and got lost. When they realized that they were stuck in the snow, they panicked and abandoned the vehicle. They tried to leave on foot to get help, and they all ended up passing in the elements. The theory is debated, though, as the car could have been moved, but I feel like maybe they were too panicked to realize they just could have pushed it out. It was pitch black, cold. I feel like it's not, unreasonable to think that they just didn't realize that. They did leave behind some jackets in the car. People have questioned why. Again, panic. Maybe they're like, we're just going to walk. They didn't realize how far they actually had to walk, which could explain why they left the jackets behind. Several of the men were said to hate cold weather and to be uncomfortable in unfamiliar areas. Again, they're in a forced situation. They didn't choose to be there. So even though they had the cold weather, they knew they couldn't stay in the car. They had to try and get help somehow. So they would have had to just move on from those fears to try and save themselves, and they knew that.
Yeah.
Another theory that is discussed a lot is that Gary had something to do with all of this. Obviously, he's the only one who hasn't been found. Some people believe that Gary led them intentionally into the mountains. He had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, as we mentioned. It's questioned if he had become paranoid or delusional. It's thought perhaps he convinced the others to go into the wilderness, but all reports at the time indicate that Gary was medicated and that he was doing quite well, so it seems possibly unlikely. Gary did have military training and wilderness knowledge, and as we mentioned, his is the only body never recovered. I just feel like so unlikely that he's managed to survive 50 years with no one ever, I just feel like maybe he did leave them up there in some kind of manic state, and maybe, but I feel like absolutely he's probably passed away by this point. And the other theory that is discussed a lot is that the men encountered a stranger or strangers. Maybe they did see something at the basketball game and these people followed them, and that maybe there was either foul play or a cover-up where they chased to the location where the car was found. This kind of goes along with what the witness Joseph Shon said, that someone, but I feel like if they had been chased, I don't know. I know he said he was delusional in so much pain, but surely if they saw someone else there, they might have tried to get help. I don't know. I just feel like this is such an unlikely theory. Why would anyone chase them that far into the mountains? There would have been an easier way to get rid of them if they had seen, let's say, a drug deal or something like that. There would have been easier ways to get rid of them. And then for them to pass from hypothermia. They weren't even murdered. They literally passed in the elements. So what would be the point of chasing them up there and then turning around and going away?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's like how they died isn't the mystery. It's like why were they there? What led them to that spot? What were they doing?
Yeah, I'm so interested.
Like I was thinking like maybe Gary having schizophrenia, like could he have been triggered by something and they panicked and thought they had to go hide? Or did they just take a wrong turn and then the car got stuck? And then maybe even though people are like, they could have pushed it, maybe they didn't realize they could push it. I don't know. It's just, I don't know what to think. And it's sad because we'll probably never find out.
Yeah, I agree. It's very unlikely that we'll find out anything else. I feel like we've found out everything, unless somehow Gary does pop up or they find his body. I just feel like it's been too long at this point.
I feel like even if they find his body, like it's still not going to answer any of our questions.
Yeah. So as we mentioned in the beginning of the episode, that this is often referred to in like as the American Dyatlov Pass incident. we wanted to give some context about that in case you don't know what that is. But that incident refers to the unexplained deaths of 9 experienced hikers in the winter of 1959. So, very much before this all happened. And this happened in the Ural Mountains of what is now called Russia. The group set out on a ski trek across the mountains, but they never reached their destinations. When rescuers found their campsite weeks later, the tent had been cut open from the inside, and footprints suggested that the hikers had fled into sub-zero conditions. And this is just a little aside. I actually found this interesting. With Fahrenheit and Celsius, apparently, once it gets into the minuses, they are both the same. So it was minus 40 Celsius, which is minus 40 Fahrenheit, which is weird to me because the positive temperatures are always different, but maybe when it goes to freezing, that's not. Some bodies were discovered near a forest edge beside the remains of a fire, while others were found months later under deep snow in a ravine. Several victims had severe internal injuries. One was missing a tongue, and traces of radiation were reportedly detected on some clothing. Obviously, these findings have led to lots and lots of speculation. The internal injuries could be explained by a fall, but the missing a tongue is interesting. Theories in that case have ranged from avalanches and military experiments to paranormal and attacks by the government. In 2020, the Russian investigators concluded, though, that a slab avalanche, which is a rare type of avalanche, likely triggered the group's panic, causing them to abandon the tent and succumb to hypothermia. So it is quite similar. These people all vanished in kind of weird circumstances in snowy conditions and were found dead. I feel like the Russian Dyatlov Pass one seems more mysterious than this. To me, this seems probably like a pretty clear-cut case of the men getting lost and trying to go for help and passing away before they could get help.
Yeah. I think the newest season of True Detective, the one with Jodie Foster that came out maybe a year or two ago, definitely based some of their storyline on this case because that's like something that happened in that show.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, like the Dyatlov one.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a very mysterious case. I feel like, and I know it's absolutely not the same, but in terms of the Maura Murray case, again, I feel like that's probably one, that is infamous and people always question about what happened, but I feel like she probably just got lost in the mountains and passed away from the elements too. But just because that, I feel like the most mysterious part of this is that the men who reached the trailer at least had access to food, warmth. They could have survived until someone found them, but I just feel like the real explanation for why they didn't use the supplies is they were too worried about getting in trouble and they didn't know how to use the supplies properly to survive.
Yeah, I agree. It's just sad because it was like they probably could have survived or could have gotten help, but they're just like, they were just like too vulnerable in a sense. Like it was right there, but they couldn't reach it.
Yeah, just so sad too. Like as a family, it must be so horrible because they were so close to be able to survive. And I just think also they must have been so scared. They hated the cold, were lost in this unfamiliar place. Just a very, very sad way for them to pass away. And if it was just due to a wrong turn, imagine that, like one wrong turn. We always talk about how one split decision can change your life. In this case, maybe it was just one wrong turn. They got too far on their route until they realized they couldn't turn around, and that was it.
Yeah, even though people are like, they could have moved the car. It's dark, it's late, it's cold. They might not have been able to see very well. They might not have realized that they could have pushed the car out easily.
And they did, the men who were found on the side of the road, they did get quite far. They got 11 miles or 18 kilometers from the car, and the trailer was only 19 miles. So, still not, like I know it's still a way to go, but they made it a fair way before they ended up passing away.
They probably didn't even really know that they were going to a trailer. Like they might have just been following those tracks.
The snowcat tracks.
Forever. Yeah. Yeah, so a mystery that will probably always remain a mystery.
Yeah. So there are some photos I've put on the blog of the trailer. There's some old news clippings that I've put on the blog if you want to check them out. And there's photos of the car that they were driving. So it's interesting. There is a ton of information out there. That Dyatlovpass.com website has a lot of information. I would check it out. It's one that I always even every now and then I'll just go and search for a new podcast on it and see if anyone else has got any, new information. It's one that is still widely covered to this day. So I definitely recommend doing a deep dive if you are interested in finding out more.
So that is it for this episode. As always, everything will be on the blog at truecrimesocietyblog.com if you want to read about the case and see all of our sources and everything. Man, I haven't done this for so long. I don't even remember. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. We do weekly bonus episodes and everything is ad free. We also release the main episode a day earlier. Plus, we have all the cool chats that Olivia mentioned at the start. So you get 2 episodes every week, all the chats, everything. And we definitely chat a bit more on Patreon. If you are a chat lover and enjoyer, you should check it out. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. We're always posting the latest crime news and updates and all of that. And if you want to follow our personal accounts, mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia, if you want to see what we're up to. And make sure you're leaving us Spotify comments. Make sure you're following and subscribed on whatever platform you listen to. It's a big help to us when you guys can do that. And if you could share your Instagram stories, like what you guys are doing while you're listening to the podcast, and tag us and we'll reshare it. We love seeing what everyone's up to while listening. We love seeing your pets or your businesses and hobbies. So make sure to do that too. But that is it. Thank you guys for listening. Stay safe out there. Peace out.